Welcome back to Get Well Soon, the red pill content of Welly F, aka Moriarty, where the mindset is you either die a villain or you live long enough to see yourself become a simp. I hope everybody is doing good out there in quarantine land. While I'm in my home relaxing, I found it upon myself to venture over into Fire Stick world and just randomly select a horror movie to watch, and I stumbled across Black Christmas. Black Christmas is a film that I know has been remade three times now. I've only seen the 2006 version, and I believe the 2006 version, I walked out of the theater on it because it was garbage and it wasn't interesting at all to me. And the only reason I watched this version was based on the fact that I was like, okay, we've made some huge technological advancements in the past 13, 14 years. So I'd imagine the gore and the suspense may be a little better in this one. I had no idea that I was watching or I was about to watch Black Christmas on freaking femeroids. It was wow. Within the first 5 or 10 minutes, I was already hearing buzzwords like misogyny, patriarchal. I was already seeing women be extremely vulgar, putting, sanitary devices up their vagina for the sake of, I guess, shock value. A lot of feminist attire, the disheveled hair, the shirts that yelled at you that I'm a feminist, and it was wow. First 5 or 10 minutes, and I was baffled, and I forced myself to finish this movie because I automatically knew. Okay, I was like, oh God, yes, I'm definitely about to pretty much go to YouTube and do what I do best. Okay, as I was done with the movie, one of the things I do with movies when I'm truly intrigued by them, so to speak, is I'll see who directed it, I'll see who the screenwriters are, and right off the back, I saw that the screenwriter was a woman. I think the director's name was Sophia Takal. She doesn't have a worthwhile list of movies that she's been a part of. I mean, honestly, she's an indie filmmaker. I automatically, wikied her obviously and saw that she was married, and I believe she's married to another indie filmmaker by the name of Lawrence Michael Levine. And when I saw him, I automatically saw that this is your typical feminist relationship where they, the woman obviously she has some appeal to her. She's attractive, so to speak, but the guy that they're with is obviously gonna have that beta soy vibe. And obviously, when you're thinking about indie directors and stuff like that, that whole little industry is pretty much full of soy boys anyway, so it wasn't any shock. I'm not even really here to get too deep into them, but if you want to check them out, yeah, I'll put a link down in the description. But either way, like I said, I like to know the psychology or the mindset of a director when they put out films like this, because this film, as radical as it was, it did nothing to really. It did nothing to make me want to hate men, but it did everything it could to make me annoyed by women more than I already am. But when I say annoyed by women, I mean modern day women that represent the third wave, fourth wave feminist ideals. Those type of women. And it did a good job within 20 or 30 minutes of doing that. I mean, the main character was a character that, like I said, the typical feminist look, the disheveled hair, honestly, the psychotic eyes, the eyes that just look like, that just scream almost, I'm deranged at this point, and like, I have a lot going on in my head. You should leave me alone. And it was a couple of them that were like that. Don't get me wrong. These were pretty young girls, but at the end of the day, obviously they're just acting a role, but they definitely sold the. I mean, it's still Hollywood, so I know that these women took on these roles with pride. But long story short, they definitely displayed what I perceive as the third, fourth wave under 30-year-old feminist in this, just their whole look. Sophia Takal was in an interview where she talked about how she rewatched the Black Christmas movie before she was inspired to write this radical feminist movie. In the interview, she her quote says, "When I rewatch the original Black Christmas, the thing that I was struck by was at the end of the movie when you think she killed the killer, but then this other killer comes out of the shadows and you don't know who he is. This woman is asleep," Takal said. "The men who are supposed to protect her have left. She's all alone." I was just like, that is this moment right now. That is misogyny lurking in the corner. The killer in it. This faceless killer is just misogyny, and we can't never rest on our laurels or think that our job is done or that progress is inevitable. We can't fall asleep. Sophia Takal, you are asleep due to the fact that it's frustrating because as annoyed as I am by this, she wants to believe that she's not asleep, which means that she's woke. And she fails to realize that even if she considers herself woke, in the way she portrays her wokeness just shows how insane it is to reach and grasp for straws to put themselves in a position of being seen as oppressed. There was only one moment in this movie where a guy tried to stand up for himself, and it was one of those not all guys are like that moment, which I think that guys say that just in response of the being overly emotional and being attacked and being generalized in the moment, and that's the first thing that a guy is going to say. But I think that a rational guy that is put in the situation where he's boxed in with other guys, I think its immediate response is usually, those are the guys you messed with. It's as simple as that. You chose shitty guys. You knew the guy was shitty. That's on you. Stop trying to put it on all other guys when at the end of the day, not all guys are like that. I hate to say it, and I understand women have that same attitude. But the fact of the matter is, in 2020, I can honestly say that it's a small percentage of men and it's a small percentage of women that don't fit, that can't actually possibly fall into that. Not all of us are like that, because it'll be insane to think that women and men walking around just have bad luck like that. Let's be honest, people. Your average guy, your average woman, under the age of 33 these days, really aren't marriageable. They don't have this. They don't have the mindsets needed to go into what I would consider the traditional marriage roles. Everybody's doing their own thing right now. We're all built different. We're not like the boomers. We're not like the older Gen Xers. We just gotta face the facts. But long story short, this, like I told you from the beginning, this movie took a turn for the worse immediately. And like I said, this is not something I want to stay on long, but you just need to understand that there was a lot of parallels to what is going on to the Me Too movement, because this is basically a rape revenge story that starts with a girl and her friends. See, this is the thing that bothers me a lot too. And I said it on the No Boundaries podcast. I'm always going to question, why is it that women love to be in places, or they tend to stay in places where they're not welcome, where they don't feel safe, where they even question their existence. You know, this girl was supposedly raped by one of the guys in the frat, and the whole time she's there, she has this disturbed look on her face, as if she's trapped at this college that is just coincidentally in the Northeast, where Brett Kavanaugh had his little case was. I know his case, took place in the Northeast area, New England, so to speak, and it's at this Hawthorne College. And the thing that I have to ask myself this question all the time, like, women are not trapped in these situations, meaning you have all the ability in the world to break away from this sorority, break away from this college that you're attending, and start over somewhere else. It is not like that you sign this 5-year contract to a record label and you got to get lawyers to get out. Like, you can leave this college if you don't feel safe. And there was no moment in this movie from beginning to end where you see the look on her face like she actually felt safe. She never felt safe there, and she still stayed. Obviously, and the crazy part about it is she wasn't even the most radical feminist. The radical feminist just happened to be played by a fair-skinned, probably mulatto black girl that portrayed herself as this sister soldier, kind of like the girl from Dear White People. This movie, I don't think I saw a single dark skinned, a single brown skinned person in sight. This, I mean, and honestly, that may be the reality in a Northeast college like this. You might not see a lot of black people out there. Might be you're more likely to see a Barack Obama type out there. But the reality is, you saw a very soy filled population of children in my eyes. Obviously, these are college kids, and I still argue that if you're not welcome somewhere, you don't feel safe somewhere, then you should leave. Especially if you have 100% control and you have all the ability. At the end of the day, your safety is way more important than convenience. So yes, I do believe that the rape culture aspect of this movie was ridiculous due to the fact that even as a father, if I knew that my daughter was going into a situation where the likelihood of her being raped was like 70-80% probability, I mean, that's just as dumb as me going into a marriage knowing that the rate of divorce is about 80%. Like, I'm not a statistician or whatever you call it. I'm not just into stats like that, but I do believe in patterns. I do believe numbers hold some value, obviously, and I don't ignore them. So with that being said, I just think that this movie, once again, was just a radical extreme approach at trying to shun the patriarchy, when in reality, these same feminists, these same radical feminists, these so-called progressives, in November are going to be rushing to the polls to vote for another old white male oppressor. It doesn't make any sense. So the messages that these movies try to convey they don't correlate with what's going on in reality. That's why I always tell my friends, do not listen to what women say, watch what they do. Because as much as they yell they hate the patriarchy, hey, they feel going to the polls in November supporting this same patriarchy, it makes sense to them. So in my honest opinion, they must love it. This woman in this movie portrays this victimized, disheveled, distraught, weak woman, but she stays at the campus. So there's some type of allure there that keeps her there. It can't just be convenience. It can't just be a scholarship. A part of her must feel alive by staying attached to this toxicity. That's how I see it. And I see it with a lot of modern women today, because I firmly believe that toxicity makes a lot of these women feel alive. It gives them purpose. But you need to understand something. This is not a movie that I recommend you watch. I mean, pretty much across the board, it has shitty ratings. I mean, 3.2 out of 10 on IMDb, 38% on Rotten Tomatoes, 49 on Metacritic. Even liberal sites, liberal publications like The Guardian even wrote a pretty bad review on it. I mean, literally gave it a 1 star and called it a woke slasher remake. Remake is an unholy, unscary mess. The second attempt to resurrect the 1974 campus set horror is well-intentioned yet ultimately unconvincing modernization. And I agree with that. And even when I was just looking at reviews, I even found this woman, Flaming Bun Bun, that gave it 1 star, and pretty much everything she says pretty much could sum up what I would say in the next 2 minutes. Like I said, she gave it a 1 star over no stars is for an interesting concept. But all in all, typical horror mumbo jumbo. And by the end, the most ridiculous thing to me is, I mean, these guys are basically a frat slash cult, and they're being possessed by a powerful entity, and by the end of the movie they have these superpowers, and no matter these superpowers or not, they were still overpowered by like a group of 6 or 7 chicks that come in there with no skills on how to shoot a bow and arrow, for all we know, no athletic ability whatsoever, just 6 or 7 average women that had already been harassed, had already been pretty much beaten, and they were still able to come in there and kick the ass of like 15, 16 boys. 15, 16 college age boys. Like, come on. It went from stupid to ridiculous to fucking retarded. Like I said, it was a woke mess. It's typical Hollywood on their bullshit, funding things that they shouldn't be funding, trying to stir up shit that they should, like, it's just ridiculous. And I think this weekend we have this movie called The Hunt coming out that's supposed to pretty much be along the same lines of liberal versus conservative or whatever, and it's just all out mayhem. It's just ridiculous, and it's getting to the point where even women are annoyed by it. And I'm gonna end off by saying, once again, like I talked about with Terminator Dark Fate, you're talking about an action movie with Terminator Dark Fate when your target audience is probably going to be mostly male because it's an action movie. So while you're shooting this movie and you're thinking about your dialogue, you may want to think about the fact that you don't want to insult your main audience. Black Christmas does that every 10 minutes. And I don't see how a man could have been in the theater watching this movie comfortably while being insulted. Because I'm going to say it till I go into the grave. I've never watched a movie or supported a movie that openly insulted women every 10 minutes. It just didn't happen. Most of the movies that I've watched, they depicted women in a fairly realistic manner. In this movie, I saw some realistic undertones, but by the end, it got ridiculous. Like I said, 6 or 7 average women were able to overtake a whole freaking frat that was under the spell of a freaking demon. Like, really? Get it together, Hollywood. It's a freaking mess. Sophia Takao, I hope you don't make any more mainstream movies. And, I hope you just stick to your indie movies that are going to be intended for your beta soy cuck-filled crowd, and let that be that. But anyways, I enjoy this as usual. Make sure you rate, comment, and subscribe. And until we meet again.